The fulfilled promise. Augusto's lesson at the dealership get to know the story of Augusto, a farmer who walked into a car dealership in his simple clothes and quiet demeanor. He was humiliated by the salespeople, but left with everyone's heads bowed low. This story shows what happens when we judge someone by their appearance and forget that true wealth isn't in their pockets, but in their hearts. Stay until the end, because the lesson Augusto gave, without raising his voice, will make you see people in a different way. The morning was clear, and the showroom's gleaming glass contrasted with the heat outside. Inside, the salespeople, dressed in crisp white shirts, watched each customer like a fish about to bite the bait. Then Augusto entered. The sound of his heavy boots on the polished floor made a few heads turn. He was a tall, thin man, his skin marked by the sun and his hands calloused. He wore faded jeans, a rumpled shirt, and a crooked straw hat. The scent of dry brush entered with him. "Good morning, gentlemen," Augusto said, politely removing his hat. "I've come to look at some pickup trucks." Roberto, the most experienced and arrogant salesperson in the store, barely hid a smirk. "Ah, of course. Who are you, Augusto? Have you already seen the models online, or are you just browse? I want to see 7 identical ones, a strong cargo pickup. If you have them in black, even better," Augusto replied calmly. Roberto raised his eyebrows. 7? Augusto nodded. 7. If I like them, I'll pay cash. The words landed like a silent bomb. Roberto chuckled and looked at his colleagues in the corner. One of them whispered something and laughed. Another blurted out, "Are you building an army?" Augusto pretended not to hear. He opened his folder and pulled out a handwritten sheet of notes, calmly surveying the showroom. That's when Gustavo, one of the younger salespeople, approached him. "Mr. Augusto, would you like some coffee? I can show you the available models with stronger engines and reduced gearing for off-road use." "I only deal with people who treat me with respect," the farmer replied, looking directly into the young man's eyes. Gustavo smiled slightly, awkwardly, and invited him to sit down. While the others quietly snickered in the background, Augusto sat with dignity, took out a simple pair of glasses, and began in a low, measured voice to explain what he wanted. He wasn't there to impress. He was there to fulfill a promise. Even if no one knew it yet, this wasn't just a purchase. It was a chapter in a story he'd waited 30 years to write. As Gustavo calmly showed the models, gazes pierced the showroom like poisoned arrows. Roberto, the older salesperson, pretended to organize papers but whispered loud enough to be heard. "He'll want 7, huh? Soon he'll be asking for a helicopter, too." The muffled laughter of the other 2 salespeople in the back didn't go unnoticed. Gustavo cast a discreet glance in their direction, trying to maintain his composure. He was used to that kind of environment, but that morning, something bothered him more than usual. Augusto, for his part, seemed oblivious. He looked at brochures, asked technical questions with the precision of someone who knew more about dirt roads than many there knew about asphalt. He wanted to know about torque, cargo capacity, reinforced suspension. "Do you intend to use it for heavy transport?" Gustavo asked, curious. "No, it's a gift," Augusto replied, without taking his eyes off the spec sheet. Gustavo raised his eyebrows, surprised. A gift? At that moment, Roberto approached the table with a falsely sympathetic expression. He leaned his arms on it and said, "Mr. Augusto, we deal with real orders here, okay? 7 pickup trucks paid cash is serious business. Did you bring any proof of income, a bank statement?" Gustavo tried to interrupt. "Roberto, I'm with him. Everything's fine. Look, son, I just want to make sure we don't waste time with fantasies," Roberto replied, without even looking at Gustavo. Augusto looked at him calmly, took his wallet from his back pocket, and placed a bank-headed paper with his balance on the table. Gustavo discreetly glanced at the numbers. They spoke volumes, and there was no fantasy there. Roberto cleared his throat. The other salespeople were silent for a few seconds. "Well, in that case," he said, trying to smile. "It's too late now," Augusto interrupted in a firm voice. "I'll stick with this young man here. He's the only one who treated me like a person since I walked in." Gustavo was speechless. Roberto, with his mouth half open, simply nodded and slowly walked away. The atmosphere in the dealership became strange. The silence spoke more than any sales pitch. The laughter vanished. Augusto continued to answer questions patiently. Gustavo, still impacted, gently asked, "Mr. Augusto, excuse the question, but who are these cars for?" Augusto paused for a moment, looked towards a window where the light reflected off the body of one of the pickups, and took a deep breath. "For those who never let me down." Then he smiled, a short smile laden with meaning. Gustavo didn't fully understand what that meant, but he knew at that instant that there was something much bigger behind that request. With the models chosen and colors decided, Gustavo had already put together a formal proposal. Augusto asked that all 7 vehicles be identical. The same color, same configuration, all black with 4x4 traction and a diesel engine. No frills, but tough like people who live in the mud. Across the showroom, Roberto watched with sour face. The other salespeople avoided eye contact. The manager, sensing the discomfort in the air, approached Gustavo with a subdued tone. "Is everything all right here?" "Yes. He wants to close on all 7 today." The manager looked at Augusto, who was replying to an email on an old cell phone with slow, thick finger movements. "Sir, of course we want to fulfill your order, but before anything else, I need to check the financial side. Transfer, invoice, registration. Do you have a business account?" Augusto didn't get annoyed. He simply took a contact card and a recommendation letter signed by a local bank out of his inside shirt pocket. Gustavo took it, read it, and handed it to the manager with a look that said, "Now you better not screw this up too." The manager was silent, analyzing the documents. The letter spoke for itself. Augusto was one of the largest corn and milk suppliers in the region, with land in 4 municipalities, discreet but respected. The tension shifted. The manager attempted a smile. Of course. I apologize, sir. We're just following protocol." "No need to apologize, young man. I'm used to it." Gustavo felt the impact of those words. They didn't come with resentment, but with the calm of someone who had been judged by their exterior too many times, and never by their interior. Minutes later, the manager confirmed that the down payment transfer had been approved. Augusto didn't hesitate. "I'll close the rest tomorrow morning. I want to deliver them this weekend." Gustavo asked, surprised, "Will you deliver them personally?" "Yes, one by one. I want to see their faces when I arrive." "Who are they?" Gustavo asked for the second time. Augusto looked into the young man's eyes, as if assessing whether he deserved to hear. "If you really want to know, show up Saturday on Colombo Road. I'll take you with me." Gustavo hesitated for a moment, but something inside him, perhaps curiosity, perhaps respect, said yes. And at that moment, he still had no idea what was to come, but he knew he wanted to see it with his own eyes. Saturday arrived with a clear sky and a dirt road. Gustavo didn't know what to expect. He followed Augusto's instructions and drove down Colombo Road, where the asphalt turned to dust and the cell phone signal disappeared. When he found a wooden gate with a horseshoe nailed in the center, he knew he was in the right place. On the other side, he saw Augusto in a new hat, leaning against the first of the 7 lined-up vehicles, all gleaming and identical, black, powerful, aligned like soldiers ready for a silent mission. "I thought you weren't coming, boy," Augusto said, smiling. Gustavo got out his car, shook his hand, and stared at the trucks. "So this is all real? And the best is yet to come." Augusto asked him to come along for the first delivery. Gustavo got into the passenger seat as the engine rumbled softly. The old man began to speak, not like someone telling just any story, but like someone opening a piece of his own soul. "When I was in my early 20s, I worked in a settlement with 6 others. Everything was small, little land, a lot of hunger. We only had 1 pickup, an old, broken-down one, but it was all we had." He gripped the steering wheel with both hands, as if he were still back in that time. "We shared it for everything. Taking milk to the city, getting feed, rushing sick children to the clinic. Sometimes it would break down halfway, and we'd all walk, pushing it, laughing. No one complained because we were brothers of the road, brothers of the mud." Gustavo listened in silence, feeling a lump form in his throat. One by one, they got old, Some lost everything. One had a stroke, another sold his land, one still works, but only with a horse now. And you, sir? I kept going, produced more, saved, but I never forgot what they did for me, for my family. That's why today, each of them will get one of these, without warning, just gratitude. They stop in front of the first house, a simple shack with a crooked wooden porch. An elderly man came out, his shirt open and his face marked by time. He stopped at the gate and stood motionless. Augusto, you remember me? I've come to deliver your pickup truck. My what? A brand new pickup. It's right there. It's in your name. It's paid off. The old man brought his hands to his face, stumbling. An old woman came out of the house, crying, "This is a joke, isn't it?" "Old debt. I'm just paying it with love." Gustavo watched it all with teary eyes. This was repeated 6 times. Each house a story, each delivery a hug, each key a symbol of something no money could buy. On the last delivery, Augusto stopped in front of the 7th pickup and said, "This one is for me, not out of vanity, but to remember every time I drive it that it's worth walking with people who don't abandon you on the side of the road." On Monday, the dealership showroom looked the same. Clean cars, polished salespeople, coffee served in plastic cups. But there was a rumor in the air. A simple video, made by Gustavo, with clips of the pickup deliveries, had started circulating. In a few hours, that content crossed the city. Some recognized the faces of the men who received the trucks with tears in their eyes. In the store, the salespeople who had mocked Augusto tried to feign normalcy. Roberto, in particular, avoided any topic related to the incident, but it was impossible to escape. The manager entered the sales room and announced, "The board watched the video. They've invited Mr. Augusto for a tribute. It will be this afternoon here." "Here," asked Roberto, pale. "Here, and guess who will receive him?" Roberto didn't answer. Gustavo stood up. "I will receive him. It's the least I can do." When Augusto entered through the door at 3 p.m., nothing about him had changed. His simple shirt, his calm stride, his hat neatly in place. But the atmosphere around him was different. Silent, respectful, gazes lowered. He walked with the same serenity to the center of the store. The employees formed a circle. The manager began his speech, but Augusto raised a hand. "No need for all this. I just came to thank this young man here." He pointed to Gustavo. "He was the only one who looked me in the eye without judging me by my shoes." Gustavo was visibly moved. His colleagues began to applaud, some with shame etched on their faces. Augusto looked around and added, "I know many people here laughed and mocked, but I won't lecture you. I just want you to remember one thing. Not every man in an old hat is foolish, and not every new car goes further than someone with gratitude in their heart." Silence. No arguments. No responses. Roberto, red-faced, tried to approach, but Augusto was already turning to leave. Before crossing the door, he looked at Gustavo one last time. "If you ever want to leave the city and drive on dirt roads, look me up. People who treat others well always have a guaranteed ride with me." And then he left, leaving behind the sound of timid applause and the most silent lesson that dealership had ever received. From that day on, Augusto's name began to circulate not only among salespeople in the city, but also among farmers, mechanics, merchants, and people who didn't even know him personally. He wasn't famous, nor a politician, nor did he appear on billboards, but his story traveled faster than any brand new pickup truck. Sales continued at the dealership, but something had changed. The coffee seemed more bitter, the laughter more restrained, the eyes more attentive. It was as if Augusto's silence had taught them more than any sales training. Gustavo was promoted months later, but he knew his greatest gain wasn't in his new position or his bonus. It was that Saturday on Colombo Road, when he saw with his own eyes what pure gratitude truly means. One afternoon, he returned to Augusto's farm. He wanted to thank him personally. He arrived unannounced, but was received like an old friend. "Well, young man, good. Did you come for coffee or to drive in the dust?" Augusto joked with the same calm smile. "I came to tell you that your story changed my life, Mr. Augusto." "My story? What is that?" "Boy, I just did what I promised." The road doesn't end when we arrive. It continues with the people who walk with us. The two sat under a tree, the sun slowly setting, painting the field orange. The black trucks were all there, lined up in front of the headquarters, as if silently guarding the stories they carried. Gustavo looked at them and said, "Everyone remembers those who buy, but you made the world remember those who help build." Augusto lowered his eyes, thoughtfully. "The world forgets easily, my son, but when we build with our hearts, not even time can erase it." And that day, Gustavo understood. There are fleets that are worth a lot, but none is worth more than a promise fulfilled. This wasn't a simple purchase. It was a silent tribute, a gesture from someone who never forgot, who pushed the truck with him when the world got stuck.